Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Many of us, as we set out to seek and have and achieve goals, find sometimes we get a little tripped up in the experience and not seeing it come through the way we had expected. Then we find ourselves perhaps in depression and maybe getting to that point, why even bother trying? We find ourselves with a range of emotions like disappointment, wallowing in our misery, trying to find ways to maybe suppress those emotions and just maybe get over it. Well, if you're feeling any of these things, you might be expectation hangover might be exactly what's happening to you, and that is the title of our book today. And our guest joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program is someone who was a Hollywood agent at the age of 25, but found out that there was just no passion there. So see, we can also experience expectation hangover when we're pursuing things we think that will make us happy. But in this book, you'll find many tools that you'll be able to use on a spiritual, mental, behavioral, and emotional level. And we're going to find out how we can do this very thing of expunging expectation hangover. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program our guest, Christine Hassler. Christine, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, excited to dive into this topic.
Well, you should. You created it. I don't think I've ever heard of expectation hangover before. I've heard of a lot of other kinds of hangovers, but this one's a new one for me.
Well, good. I'm glad I could surprise you with it.
Now, tell us how this all started for you. It's quite a story that you have here in the book.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think our stories start the day we're born, and the whole story of expectation hangover started for me, I think mostly in my 20s when I became aware of it, of being a high achiever, being someone that took great comfort in planning and security and safety and perceived control, and thought that the things outside of me would make me feel a certain way. And when I'd achieve results but didn't have the feeling that I had expected, or certain things wouldn't happen, or life would throw me a curveball, I just noticed how off track I would get and how I would experience all these symptoms that you described in the introduction. And what I discovered in actually diving into my own expectation hangovers, and I've had many, career, health, money, relationships, family, when I've really looked for, what am I learning in all of these, they've been profound doorways for personal growth and transformation. When I started asking, again, what am I learning versus why is this happening to me? And I think the first one happened, like you described, in my 20s, where I achieved a certain level of success and didn't have the feeling that I hoped I'd have. In addition to that, I went into a large degree of debt. I got dumped by a fiancé about 6 or 7 months before a wedding. I got diagnosed with an undiagnosable autoimmune disorder, and I was having problems with my family at the time as well. So it was a wake-up call, and that's really what kind of put me on this path and makes me so passionate about this topic.
It's pretty fascinating, too, as you outline, is the fact that we pursue things, especially in our adult years, that we think are going to make us happy and bring us the kind of fulfillment, and it rarely ever works out that way. And the question becomes, where did we decide that specific path or those goals would actually do that for us? Where did we first come with the idea that that's the way it works?
I think it comes from our wounding, and I'll explain that. So, we all start off as little babies and kids, and anyone who's had a child or has been around children can see this, knowing that there's nothing wrong with us, knowing that we're whole and complete. We're naturally joyful and happy. We're not looking for anything outside of us to make us feel any way. And then things happen. We get hurt, people leave, people say certain things, we're teased or we're bullied or whatever. We all have a variety of things that happen to us that are part of the human experience. And we move out of that awareness from knowing that we're whole and complete and there's nothing wrong with us, and we move into fear and judgment, and we start forming limiting beliefs about something being wrong with us, about being broken, or about people leaving us, or about not being able to trust people, or about the world being harsh, or there's infinite number of beliefs and misunderstandings that we buy into. And whenever we feel a sense of lack or a sense of less than or a sense of not enoughness, and I think every human being goes through this to some degree, our ego needs to find a way to compensate for that. And I talk a lot about this in the book. I call these compensatory strategies. And so where we feel less than, we're going to try to find a way to feel like enough again. So I'll use my own life as an example. So I was bullied and teased at a young age. I felt less than. I felt unlikable. I felt broken. To compensate for that, I became a high achiever, an overachiever, and would consistently do things that I thought would bring external results that would make me feel better about myself. So I was very driven by my insecurity and constantly trying to make it better by achieving something outside of me. And that's how these compensatory strategies work and why we start to think we want certain things in our life. It's because we're looking to fill a void or to heal a wound that probably happened way back in our childhood.
Mm-hmm. That'd take some digging up, wouldn't it?
Yes, it takes being willing to investigate, and that's why I think this book took me a while to write and many, many years of life to live to get to the place where I was ready to really to put it out there, because it does require some digging and it requires a willingness. And I think most importantly, it requires taking responsibility for our own life and moving out of being a victim of our life to really surrendering and really accepting. It's a delicate dance to not be a victim and also to not be a control freak. And I think we all have to learn how to move out of both of those places.
Now, the fact that you were in your 20s and this was all happening for you, that seems to be one of those difficult decades, I think, for a lot of people, especially in America, because think about this. You spend your first 18 years, you're in school, you're with your parents, trying to get good grades, please all these people. And then it's sort of expected, at least for a lot of us anyway, it's time for you to move out and explore the world on your own and figure things out. And so you go out there and do that, but then you spend the next 10 years or better, some people the rest of their lives, who knows, trying to do the same thing they did the first 18 years. And to a lot of frustration, again, the expectations, I thought I worked hard, I thought I was, following all the procedures told me would work for me, but I just seem to be disappointing people around me. And boy, it's really a rough time.
Yeah, it really is, and I think what's also particularly challenging about this generation of young people today, I'm not in my 20s anymore, is that they were told a lot by their parents, just find a job that makes you happy, and you're amazing, and you're special, and life was kind of easy for a lot of members of the younger generation now. Their parents were, and I'm speaking in generalizations here, but their parents were fairly affluent, very involved in their life, and when they're graduating out into the real world and the job market's a little more challenging, the economy's a little more challenging, and they were used to kind of people making decisions for them, I think that young people are definitely facing a high degree of expectation hangover of, whoa, like, life is not like I thought it would be, or that I, almost was promised it would be. So I think that's a unique challenge that we're seeing with young people today.
Now, when you got into life coaching, did you expect yourself to be moving in that direction with your life?
No. Oh, my gosh, no. I never planned on...
After the George Clooney incident, it couldn't get any better than that, right?
I know. That was one fleeting moment, yes. I think that, and I've interviewed and talked to a lot of people at this point, I think it's often the unexpected things and the things we don't plan that end up being the most fulfilling. For me, in that my 27th year when I really felt like I lost everything, that's also when I started to really awaken spiritually and allow myself to be guided rather than control. And now I had to have everything ripped away from me because I was stubborn and I really liked controlling things and planning things. But my evolution as a coach came out of writing my first book, which was completely intuition-driven. I never thought I was going to be an author either. But as I was writing the book and interviewing people for my first book, which was called 20-something, 20-everything, that came out in 2005, I kept hearing from people, are you a coach? Are you a counselor? Can I talk to you again? Like over and over and over, I hear that. And I remember going to my coach at the time, and a woman that I studied with for about 11 years, her name was Mona Miller. And I said, and I was really seeing her because I was trying to figure out my life. I'd left my Hollywood job. I was like trying to figure out what my purpose is, still looking for that thing outside of me. And I said to her, maybe I'm supposed to coach and counsel people. Like, people keep saying this to me. Maybe I just kind of have a gift for this. And she goes, yeah, yep, you do. That's it. I go, what? You knew this all along? You didn't tell me? She said, no, of course not. You had to discover it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have learned if I had told you. And I was like, oh, man. But that's how it evolved, and that's really how it's been for me, is that, my willingness to listen deeply within and pay attention to what universe, divine, God, spirit, call it whatever you want, how it's directing me. It's harder from like the ego's point of view and the mental point of view, but I notice that my life flows with a lot more grace when I'm not attempting to plan every moment of it.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it fascinating, too, and I'm sure you've encountered this quite a bit personally, but also with other people, is that the shortcut does not get you there any faster than if you just did it naturally. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, it doesn't get you there at all.
Exactly. And I love that you said shortcut, because I think a lot of people try to shortcut their way out of an expectation hangover.
Right.
Something happens, we don't like feeling bad. We don't like feeling uncomfortable. But it's in those uncomfortable moments that we grow. And in my 30s, I went through a divorce, and I remember one of my mentors, a gentleman, said to me, I was going through it, he's like, I'm really sorry this is happening to you, and milk this for all it's worth. Mm-hmm. Don't hurry through it. And I'm so glad he said that, because I really paid attention, and I really looked at, what I was learning from it and how I could heal, and rather than trying to get through it or get beyond it or be strong or give myself a pep talk, to really grieve and to really transition and to go through it gently. And I have to say, it maybe took a little longer, but in terms of the healing being really full and complete, and it not be something that pops up in my life today, it makes a profound difference. So what I say to people who are going through any kind of expectation hangover right now, which I define as one of three things: either a desired result or outcome is not met, the desired result or outcome is met, and you don't have the feeling that you thought you'd have, and you're disappointed, or life throws you a curveball. And expectation hangovers can be interpersonal. They can be with someone else. Someone doesn't live up to your expectations, or you don't live up to theirs. It can be situational, and life, it's just like something didn't happen, or it can be personal. We don't live up to our own expectations. And I feel like, oftentimes we need to be brought to our knees. We need to kind of be thrown off the path we think that we should be on to get to where we really need. And so the first thing I'd offer to people who may be in an expectation hangover is allow yourself to feel your feelings about it, because I think as human beings, that's the thing we avoid the most. We don't want to feel. We want to suppress. We want to numb. We just want to feel better. And we have to give ourselves honor the sacredness of our feelings.
And you're so right about that. In fact, it gets to a point where you hear so much about, not honoring your feelings, as though we're supposed to be invincible, stronger than these things. But, emotions are really a measurement of what's really going on in our world and how we're dealing with it. And, you start suppressing that stuff, and it's like you're telling the universe or God. I like to just say God because it's a simpler word. But the fact is it's a way of showing you this is something that you can learn and grow from. Yes. And no matter how bad the adversity seems in the moment, it's always temporary. And when you move through it, you'll find yourself transformed better than you can ever imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we need, one of the reasons that coaching and counseling works, a good facilitator will be able to hold a loving space for someone while they're emoting, because we tend to interrupt our feelings or judge them or analyze them. And emotion is energy in motion, so it needs to come up and out. And in any kind of healing situation when someone's emoting, the facilitator, be it a therapist or coach or whoever, holds a space of compassion. And if we look at the word compassion, passion means suffering. The original definition of passion is suffering, and co means with. And so being in a place of compassion is being with suffering and just allowing the feeling to come up and out with no judgment, no fixing, no analysis. And that's what, in part of our own healing process, what we need to learn to do with ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves oh my gosh, we are our own worst critic.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk to ourselves like we talk to our friends, we don't have any friends. We're so awful to ourselves. And so it's just, I think one of the beautiful things an expectation hangover can teach us, especially on the emotional level, is how to have compassion for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and know that we're human, and know that if you just lost your job, or you got diagnosed with an illness, or someone that you loved has, hurt you or passed away, or whatever it may be, that it is totally natural to be sad, or to be angry, or to be these things. And not only, when we suppress them, are we not honoring our emotions, but we also can create illness in our bodies. And it can manifest as things like depression or irritability or other things like that. So we definitely want to honor our emotions. So thank you for echoing that.
Well, Christine, we talk with a lot of people that talk about these things, because usually people, by the time they're at midlife, they're either embracing the best times of their lives, or they're all tangled up thinking, things just didn't turn out the way I had hoped to. And that's an important thing to clue in on, because you actually talk about this in a very eye-opening way. And I think that in America, there's the societal undercurrent that makes us feel entitled to just about everything. Now, I remember some time ago I was reading about, if you're not succeeding with this particular endeavor, here's some things you might want to take a look at to see if this is the cause of you, not being where you thought you should be, or in your case, an expectation hangover. And one of them I looked at was entitlement. And as I read that, I started thinking, you know what? Maybe that really is me. Because think about this. We all seem to have this attitude, and you talk about this, is when we actually make any kind of effort to move towards something, okay, that automatically we feel entitled to get that end result.
Yes.
I'd like you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I think that we're way too outcome-based. We've got it backwards. We live outside in. And we want I think all of us, want results, want validation. Like, we still look to those outside things to make us okay.
Social media is a great example of that, isn't it?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. People torture themselves on social media because they just sit there comparing themselves to everybody else.
Right. You want to be liked. In fact, I was just watching Generation Like, and it was about that very thing,
Yes.
You don't want to connect with people face-to-face, but you want to use technology to connect and be liked that way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think this whole kind of outcome result is we lose touch with the why, and we lose touch with the process. And we're such a future-driven society. We're not in the present moment at all. And it's like we take a step towards something, and we think that, yes, that we're entitled to get what we want from it. And we miss out on, maybe there's another step in a different direction that's for our highest good. Or maybe there's something huge to learn here. And we get so blinded and so tunnel vision with our obsession to getting what we want. It becomes, I think entitlement is a degree of greediness. It really, really is. And it creates that tunnel vision that allows us not to be led. And I was recently with, I took some time off the grid preparing for a book launch. A book launch can make one crazy. And so I took some time off the grid, completely disconnected, and I was out with an amazing spiritual teacher named Archon, and he said, he defined spirituality as one's capacity to be guided. And that so resonated with me, because it's like, it's not how much you meditate or how much you pray or how many courses you've done or what your religion is or any of those things. It really is what's your capacity to be guided. And when we're greedy or entitled or, we're like, I want this, and, if the universe doesn't give me this, then I'm being punished or whatever, I think we become even entitled in our prayer. I talk about prayer a lot in the book, and I've learned, I used to pray to God like he was a waiter. God, please bring me, X, Y, Z. and it wouldn't happen, and my faith would be questioned, or I thought I'd be punished, or whatever. And I've learned instead to pray for grace, to pray for how I want to feel. Like, please, God, help me navigate through this with compassion. Help me find my way back to unconditional love. Help me remember who I truly am. Help me see myself the way you see me, or see another the way you see another. So that it's less about getting what I want and more about being who I truly am.
Mm-hmm. A human being rather than a human doing, as you say in the book.
Exactly, and I think it's harder and harder for us to just be. We're so addicted to doing, and it's a distraction. It's a constant distraction, and that's one of the coping mechanisms in the book I described that doesn't work, is becoming an overdoer, working so too much or taking care of others or whatever, because there are so many ways out there for us to distract ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think there comes a time in everyone's life where we have to sit and really face ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I know, myself, I just really started the Twitter universe. And it was really fascinating because I've actually been on it since 2009, but I really honestly didn't understand, nor did I really have the inclination to learn the platform. And then finally one day a light went on and I said, I can see how to use this and use it effectively. And it just really came natural to me, and I only spend maybe about a half an hour a week, putting out stuff out there for what we do, and realizing that I'm getting followers naturally, because I'm realizing, here's something like just the other day there was a young girl. She looked like she might have been in her early 20s, going to college, and she says, and it happened to be on a hashtag word re-energize, okay? So I came across that thread just to see, what are these people talking about when it comes to re-energize in relation to what I'm about to put out there? And she said that she loves listening to Elvis Presley music. It re-energizes her when she's in the car. And I was kind of surprised. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tweet her something directly. And just recently I had interviewed Ginger Alden, which was Elvis Presley's last fiancée. And so she's got a book out there that talks about Elvis and Ginger, their 9 months together up till he had passed. And so, real delightful guest. But anyway, I thought, I'm going to go ahead and tweet her a website page that has a nice little bit of what's in the book and then, of course, the interview, and she might like this. She immediately becomes a follower. Mm-hmm. See, I wasn't out there fishing for following. I just seen she liked this, and I thought, I've got something she might like also, and I threw that out there. But you see such a natural progression versus so many ways people are trying to manipulate a system like that and get all these people to follow, and you don't realize the truth is you take the special gift that you have inside, and only you know what that is. Mm-hmm. Be brave as you have. Put that out there in the world. You negotiate some of the obstacles that are there, and I think those are just like going to the gym. You're just kind of negotiating and building strength in those areas. And then you just share it with the world. And it's amazing what comes back to you. You couldn't even expect the kinds of rewards you get for something like this. Therefore, you really eliminate expectation hangover, I would think.
Yeah, you really, really do. The less attachment we have, and the more, again, where we just go with the flow of life and take one step and then another and another, and don't create tunnel vision with our plans or our expectations, the more we're pleasantly surprised by the universe. And, I still have expectation hangovers. As the author of a book on one, right before it's coming out, I've had a couple doozies. You
were thinking it was going to get the Harry Potter status, didn't you?
Well, no, I thought I was the expert, and I was done with them. But I have had a few of my own that I've had to navigate through. But the truth that I've learned is that, my time between expectation hangovers gets longer, and the time I spend suffering in them gets shorter. And right. I'm able to use my tools quicker and really see it. And this is the thing, I get really excited when someone has an expectation hangover. I have compassion for the feeling level and the challenge of it, but I get excited because I know if they're willing to look deeply and really walk through it rather than jump around it or try to throw a cover over it, that they're going to have amazing growth, and they're going to learn something remarkable about themselves, and they're going to get deeper, and their consciousness is going to shift. But it's just, are you willing to walk through it?
Mm-hmm. Now, I was just thinking, why don't you, for our listeners, share one of your favorite tools for at least helping someone recognize they're having an expectation hangover and how they can kind of work through that? I know you've got a lot of them in there, but I like how, in a way, they're all sort of similar. They just kind of approach the thing from a different point of view.
Right. Well, I think that one of the I'll speak to a couple tools on the mental level because I think that our thoughts can haunt us the most during the expectation hangover. So I use this tool called Role Playing RX, and it's a way to kind of speak to the unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind does very well with story and metaphor and symbols and those kind of things. And it's like using a familiar role to learn something. So on the mental level, I like to use the role of a horseback rider. And just imagine that your mind is like a galloping horse, Our mind can really feel out of control. But you are the rider, and you have the reins. And that's what we need to learn about our minds is that, sometimes they do feel out of control and our thoughts can run away with us. But there's a part of us, this kind of inner wisdom part of us, that's the horseback rider and that controls the reins. And so it's like that part of us is to steer the horse. So the horseback rider can go, whoa, just like you would a horse, and stop the thought, because we definitely have dominion over our mind. And the horseback rider can also redirect. So often our mind goes to kind of fear-based thoughts, like what if this happens, what if that happens, blah, blah, blah. We can actually direct it towards thoughts that make us feel better and feel more calm. Because any worry, anxiety, all that kind of future-based thinking, we're making up anyway. So use your imagination to support you and help you rather than torture you. Use the horseback rider to redirect your thoughts like you're literally, taking a horse down a different route. And in that way, we also start to rewire our brain because we start to form new patterns and new neural nets in our brain. So that's a tool that I think is pretty useful to be like, whoa, and then redirect it.
And don't worry, you won't lose control of your horse.
Right, exactly. As long as you're aware that you have the reins.
Right.
I think too many people become victims of their mind and they believe everything that they think. Don't believe everything that you think.
Exactly. Don't believe any of it. And just, when your mind starts whispering those little tales that it does, one of the tricks that I do is I'll look up at it and I'll say, well, what evidence do you have that that's true? Or I might say something like that, really? Well, how is that going to serve my greater good? And it's amazing what you'll hear your mind say in reply. Usually it scratches its head and says, I really don't know. Yeah. Okay, then could you keep quiet up there for a bit and just kind of let me enjoy the moment?
Yes, and just say to yourself, all is well.
Mm-hmm.
All is well. I'm okay. I'm doing the best I can. That's a beautiful thing to say to ourselves.
Right. Now, Christine, now that we have our listeners on horses, we need to guide them to your website. So how can they ride to where your website is?
Well, they can go check out all the free gifts that I'm offering with the book. They go to expectationhangover.com. And then my personal website to connect with me is Christine Hassler, ChristineHassler.com. And I do a weekly vlog and blog every week, and where I'm, sharing about something like this. Actually, my blog this week was called "Are You Addicted to Thinking?" And it was all about our talking about my own, like noticing that tends to be my addiction, is to thinking and figuring things out. And so it was about working with that. So each week I teach on some kind of subject and usually use stories from my own life because I love being really real with my community.
And this is on the ChristineHassler.com website?
Yes.
Okay, and that's where they can find this blog. Definitely an inspiring thing for people to have and figure out, just where you are is okay and where you want to be is a great thing too, but how to be where you should be and be where you want to be all at the same time, that becomes the real trick, doesn't it?
Yes, and accepting wherever you are.
Exactly. As I used to say when I used to end an old show I did, wherever you are is where you should be.
Exactly, and there you are.
Well, Christine, thank you so much for being here on the program today. Again, the book is Expectation Hangover. One more time on your websites.
exploitationhangover.com and christinehassler.com.
Very good, Christine. What a treat to have you here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our talk.
You bet. So there you go, listeners. You've got tools, or at least pick up a book and discover more of the tools that will be available at your fingertips so you can alleviate that expectation hangover. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.